The morning sun cast long shadows across the rolling hills of Gloucestershire as the black Range Rover made its way down the narrow country lane. Inside, Prince William adjusted his collar for the third time, while Catherine smoothed down her practical wool coat. Today wasn't about royal protocol or state dinners. Today was about connecting with the heart of rural Britain, something both of them genuinely cherished. The vehicle slowed as it approached Meadowbrook Farm, a 200-acre working farm that had been in the Henderson family for 4 generations. Tom Henderson, a weathered man in his 60s with hands that told stories of decades working the land, stood nervously by the farmhouse gate. His wife Sarah had been up since dawn, ensuring everything was perfect for their royal visitors. William stepped out first, immediately struck by the fresh countryside air that carried the scent of hay and the distant sound of cattle. Catherine followed, her eyes lighting up as she took in the pastoral scene before them. The farm stretched out in all directions, with golden fields dotted with sheep and a red brick farmhouse that looked like something from postcard. "Your Royal Highnesses," Tom began formally, but William quickly interrupted with a warm smile. "Please, just William and Catherine today. We're here to learn about your incredible work." The genuine warmth in the prince's voice immediately put Tom at ease. He had been worried about protocol, about saying the right things, but the royal couple's down-to-earth demeanor was infectious. Sarah emerged from the farmhouse, wiping her hands on her apron, and was pleasantly surprised when Catherine immediately complimented her beautiful garden. As they walked toward the main farm buildings, Tom began explaining the challenges facing modern British agriculture. The past few years had been particularly difficult, with extreme weather patterns, rising costs, and the ongoing effects of various political changes. Yet there was pride in his voice as he spoke about the farm's commitment to sustainable practices and their role in feeding the nation. Catherine listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about crop rotation and animal welfare. Her genuine interest wasn't lost on Tom, who found himself relaxing completely as he realized these weren't just polite royal questions, but queries from someone who truly wanted to understand. The first stop was the dairy operation, where William got his hands dirty helping with the morning milking. Despite his royal status, he approached the task with determination, though his technique needed some work. The farm workers, initially nervous about having royalty in their workplace, soon found themselves laughing as William struggled with a particularly stubborn cow named Buttercup. "She's got personality, this one," William said, stepping back as Buttercup turned to give him a look that seemed distinctly unimpressed with his milking skills. The moment broke any remaining tension, and soon the barn filled with easy laughter and conversation. Meanwhile, Catherine had been drawn to the farm's chicken coop, where dozens of free-range hens pecked and scratched in the dirt. She knelt down, completely unconcerned about her expensive coat, as several bold chickens approached her curiously. One particularly friendly hen, which Sarah informed her was named Henrietta, seemed determined to investigate the royal visitor thoroughly. "I think she approves," Catherine laughed as Henrietta pecked gently at her wedding ring, the sunlight catching the sapphire that had once belonged to William's mother. The morning continued with visits to the sheep pasture, where William attempted to help with herding and discovered that sheep have their own ideas about where they want to go. Catherine proved more successful with the farm's border collie, Max, who seemed to sense her natural confidence with animals. As they made their way back toward the main farmyard, Tom mentioned almost casually that they had some new equipment he was particularly proud of. A bright green tractor sat gleaming in the afternoon sun, its modern technology a stark contrast to the traditional farming methods they had been observing. "She's our pride and joy," Tom said, patting the tractor's side affectionately. "Just got her last month. All the latest GPS technology, automated systems. Makes the work so much more efficient." William's eyes lit up with genuine interest. Despite his royal upbringing, he had always been fascinated by machinery and technology. Would it be possible to take a closer look? Catherine smiled, recognizing that particular tone in her husband's voice. It was the same enthusiasm he showed for his helicopter piloting, the same curiosity that had driven him through his military training. She had a feeling their peaceful farm visit was about to become considerably more interesting. Tom's face brightened considerably as he led William and Catherine toward the impressive piece of machinery. The tractor was indeed magnificent, its green paint gleaming under the afternoon sun, chrome fixtures polished to perfection. It represented everything modern about farming, while still maintaining the rugged practicality that made these machines the backbone of British agriculture. "She's a beauty, isn't she?" Tom said with obvious pride, running his hand along the tractor's massive front tire. "Cost more than my first house, but worth every penny. The GPS system means I can plow a perfectly straight line even in the fog. The automated hydraulics adjust the plow depth automatically based on soil conditions." Williams circled the machine like a child in a toy store, examining every detail. His years of military training had given him an appreciation for well-engineered equipment, and this tractor was clearly a masterpiece of agricultural engineering. Catherine watched with amusement as her husband's formal posture relaxed completely, replaced by the enthusiasm of someone genuinely fascinated by how things worked. "The cab is completely climate-controlled," Tom continued, clearly enjoying having such an appreciative audience. "Sound dampened, too. You can barely hear the engine when you're inside. And look at this." He opened the door to reveal an interior that looked more like a spaceship than traditional farm equipment. The cab was indeed impressive, with multiple digital displays, joystick controls, and a leather seat that would have been at home in a luxury car. William stepped closer, studying the array of controls with the intensity he usually reserved for helicopter cockpit systems. "The learning curve must be considerable," Catherine observed, always thinking practically about the human element in any situation. "Actually, the younger generation picks it up quickly," Sarah chimed in, having joined them from the farmhouse. "It's us older folks who struggle with all the computers." Tom spent the first week convinced he was going to break something expensive. Tom laughed, a hint of embarrassment coloring his cheeks. "She's not wrong. First day, I tried to use the auto steer. I ended up making crop circles in the barley field. Looked like aliens had visited." The mental image of the dignified farmer creating accidental crop circles sent Catherine into a fit of giggles, which in turn made William grin widely. The easy camaraderie between the royal couple and their hosts had developed naturally throughout the day, far from the formal interactions that often characterized official visits. "Would you like to climb up and have a look inside?" Tom offered, gesturing toward the cab. "The view from up there is spectacular." William's eyes lit up immediately, but he glanced questioningly at Catherine, who nodded encouragingly. She knew her husband well enough to recognize when his curiosity was thoroughly engaged. Tom demonstrated how to operate the hydraulic steps that lowered from the side of the machine, making access easier. William climbed up with the agility of someone accustomed to boarding helicopters and aircraft, while Catherine followed more cautiously, mindful of her dress shoes on the metal steps. The view from the cab was indeed impressive. From their elevated position, they could see across the entire farm, rolling hills stretching to the horizon dotted with sheep and divided by ancient stone walls. The afternoon sun painted everything in golden hues, making the countryside look like a painting. "During harvest season, I'll spend 12 hours a day up here," Tom explained, having climbed up to join them. "Used to be backbreaking work, but now it's almost peaceful. These new machines do most of the thinking for you." William settled into the driver's seat, his hands naturally finding the controls as Tom explained the various systems. Catherine watched from the passenger seat, noting how quickly her husband absorbed the technical information. It reminded her of watching him prepare for helicopter flights, the same methodical approach to understanding complex machinery. "The key is in the PTO," Tom was saying, referring to the power takeoff system that drove various implements. "Everything runs off that. You can control plowing depth, seeding rates, even fertilizer application rates, right from these joysticks." "Remarkable engineering," William murmured, genuinely impressed. "The level of precision must improve yields significantly." "Oh, absolutely. We can vary seed density across a single field based on soil analysis. Plant more in the good areas, less where the soil is poor." The The computer remembers everything and creates maps for the next season. As Tom continued his explanation, Catherine noticed how comfortable William looked in the operator's seat. His military background had taught him to quickly adapt to new equipment, and his natural mechanical aptitude was evident in how quickly he grasped the concepts Tom was explaining. The real test, of course, is actually driving it, Tom said with a grin. All this technology doesn't mean much if you can't handle the machine in the field. The words hung in the air for a moment. William's expression shifted slightly, and Catherine recognized the look that crossed his face. It was the same expression he had worn before his first solo helicopter flight, before his first parachute jump during military training. It was the look of someone accepting a challenge. "I don't suppose," William said carefully, "that you'd be willing to let me try actually operating it? Just for a few minutes?" Tom's eyes widened slightly. The thought of a member of the royal family driving his expensive new tractor was both thrilling and terrifying. Catherine could practically see the internal debate playing out on his face. "I mean, if you think it would be safe," William added quickly, sensing Tom's hesitation. "I have experience with complex machinery, and I'd follow your instructions exactly." Sarah, who had been listening from the ground, called up, "Tom, remember what you always say about learning. You can't truly understand something until you've done it yourself." The decision seemed to make itself. Tom looked at William's eager expression, then at Catherine's encouraging smile, and, finally, at his wife Sarah, who was nodding enthusiastically from below. The afternoon sun was perfect, the field was empty, and how often did one get the chance to teach a future king how to drive a tractor? Right then, Tom said, his practical nature overcoming his nervousness. "But we start slow, and I control everything until you get the feel for it." William's grin was infectious as Tom began explaining the startup sequence. The massive engine rumbled to life with a deep, satisfying growl that Catherine could feel through the metal seat. The digital displays lit up like a Christmas tree, showing engine temperature, hydraulic pressure, fuel levels, and a dozen other parameters that Tom rattled off with practiced ease. "The most important thing to remember," Tom emphasized, "is that this machine weighs over 8 tons. It's not like driving a car. Everything happens more slowly, and stopping takes planning." William nodded seriously, his military training evident in how carefully he listened to the safety briefing. Catherine found herself slightly nervous but also excited. She had seen her husband pilot helicopters and drive various military vehicles, but there was something charmingly ordinary about watching him prepare to drive a farm tractor. Tom demonstrated the controls first, gently engaging the transmission and moving the massive machine forward at barely walking speed. The ride was surprisingly smooth, the advanced suspension system absorbing bumps and irregularities in the farmyard. They made a slow circuit around the main buildings, Tom pointing out various features and explaining how different implements could be attached and operated. "The hydraulic steering makes it feel much lighter than it actually is," Tom explained as they completed their practice loop. "But remember, the rear wheels follow a different path than the front when you're turning. It's easy to clip something with the back end if you're not careful." After several minutes of demonstration, Tom brought the tractor to a complete stop in an open area of the farmyard. "Right then, your turn. But we keep it simple. No implements attached, no complex maneuvers. Just forward, backward, and gentle turns." William and Tom carefully switched positions, with Tom remaining close enough to grab the controls if necessary. Catherine watched from her passenger seat, noting how her husband's posture changed as he took responsibility for the massive machine. His shoulders squared, his hands found the controls with military precision, and his expression became focused but confident. "Remember, everything is hydraulic assisted, so you don't need to force anything," Tom coached as William familiarized himself with the control layout. "Clutch with your left foot. Throttle is hand-operated, not foot like a car." The first movement was tentative, barely a creep forward as William got used to the feel of the machine. The tractor responded smoothly, and Catherine could see her husband's confidence growing with each successful meter of movement. His years of piloting experience served him well, as he understood the importance of smooth, deliberate control inputs. Excellent, Tom encouraged. Now, try a gentle turn to the right. Remember to give yourself plenty of room. William executed the turn perfectly, the tractor responding predictably to his inputs. Catherine found herself relaxing as it became clear that her husband's mechanical aptitude translated well to agricultural machinery. Tom was clearly impressed, nodding approvingly as William demonstrated increasing comfort with the controls. "You're a natural at this," Tom commented. "Most first-time operators are jerky with the controls, but you've got the smooth touch down already." Emboldened by the praise, William suggested they try driving out to the nearby field. It was a simple request, just a straight drive down a well-maintained farm track, but it would give him a chance to experience the tractor in its natural environment. Tom considered for a moment, looking at the wide, empty track that led to the lower pasture. There were no obstacles, no complicated maneuvers required, just a gentle downhill slope and an equally gentle uphill return. "All right, but we keep it slow and easy." Catherine felt a little thrill of adventure as they began moving away from the farmyard. From her elevated position in the cab, she had an excellent view of the countryside rolling past. The tractor's massive tires handled the rough track surface with ease, and the ride remained surprisingly comfortable despite their size and weight. "This is wonderful," Catherine called out over the engine noise. "You can see for miles from up here." The track led them past a small copse of oak trees and down toward a gate that separated the upper farmyard from the lower grazing fields. William was clearly enjoying himself, his earlier nervousness replaced by genuine pleasure in operating the powerful machine. "The steering is remarkably responsive," he commented to Tom, who was watching his every move with the careful attention of an experienced instructor. "Modern hydraulics," Tom replied proudly. "Nothing like the old mechanical systems. You can turn this machine with one finger if you need to." As they approached the gate to the lower field, Tom suggested they stop and turn around. It had been a perfect first lesson, and both he and Catherine were ready to head back to the farmhouse for the tea that Sarah had been preparing. But William, flushed with success and genuinely enjoying his first tractor driving experience, had developed that particular look Catherine recognized from their early dating days. It was the same expression he had worn before suggesting they take that memorable motorcycle ride through the Scottish Highlands, the same look that preceded many of their more adventurous royal engagements. "Tom," William said carefully, "would it be possible to drive just a little bit into the field? Nothing complicated, just to experience what it's like to operate in actual farming conditions." Catherine felt a familiar flutter of anticipation. She knew that tone in her husband's voice, and she had learned over the years that William's definition of just a little bit and nothing complicated often differed significantly from most people's interpretations of those phrases. Tom hesitated for just a moment, studying the field beyond the gate. It was a recently harvested wheat field, flat and relatively smooth, with good visibility in all directions. The stubble was short enough that there was little risk of hidden obstacles, and the soil was firm after several dry days. His farmer's eye assessed the conditions automatically, and he found them acceptable. "Well," he said slowly, "I suppose a short drive across the field wouldn't hurt anything. The conditions are good, and you're handling the machine well." William's smile was immediate and genuine. "Excellent. Just a quick loop around the perimeter, nothing ambitious." Catherine caught Tom's eye and gave him a reassuring nod. She had learned to trust her husband's judgment when it came to machinery and calculated risks. His military background had given him excellent situational awareness, and she could see he was being appropriately cautious. Tom climbed down to open the gate, a sturdy metal barrier that swung wide to reveal the open field beyond. The harvested wheat field stretched out before them, golden stubble catching the late afternoon light. It was a beautiful sight, quintessentially English countryside at its finest. William engaged the transmission carefully and guided the massive tractor through the gate opening. The transition from the firm track surface to the field was barely noticeable, testament to both the machine's capability and the good condition of Tom's land. "Keep to the headland for now," Tom instructed, referring to the strip of land around the field's perimeter. "It's the firmest ground, and we can see any potential problems from there." The tractor moved smoothly across the field's surface, its wide tires distributing the weight evenly and leaving minimal impact on the soil. Catherine found the experience surprisingly peaceful. The gentle rocking motion of the machine, combined with the rhythmic sound of the engine and the beautiful countryside views, created an almost meditative atmosphere. "I can see why you enjoy this work," William commented to Tom, who had visibly relaxed as he saw how competently the prince was handling his precious tractor. "There's something very satisfying about it." "Wait until you try it during harvest season," Tom replied with a grin. "When you're cutting wheat and the grain is flowing into the tank, and you know you're gathering food that will feed families across the country. That's when you really understand why we do this work." They completed one circuit of the field perimeter without incident, William growing more confident with each turn. The tractor responded beautifully to his inputs, and even Catherine had to admit that her husband looked completely natural in the operator's seat. "How about one more circuit?" William suggested as they approached their starting point. "I feel like I'm just getting the hang of it." Tom nodded agreeably. The afternoon was still young, the conditions remained perfect, and he was genuinely enjoying watching someone discover the satisfaction of operating a well-designed piece of agricultural machinery. The second circuit began as smoothly as the first. William had found his rhythm with the machine, and Catherine was taking pictures with her phone to capture the moment. The image of the future king of England driving a farm tractor was too precious not to preserve. They were about halfway around the field when William decided to demonstrate his growing confidence by taking a slightly tighter turn than before. It was still a reasonable maneuver, well within the tractor's capabilities, but it required a bit more precision than the wide, gentle turns he had been making. "Just ease into it," Tom coached, watching William's technique carefully. "Remember, the back wheels will cut the corners shorter than you expect." William nodded and began the turn, his hands steady on the steering wheel. The tractor responded perfectly at first, beginning a smooth arc that would bring them around the field corner in good form. But then, William, perhaps feeling overconfident or simply misjudging the machine's momentum, decided to tighten the turn just a little more. He adjusted the steering slightly, intending to make the corner more efficiently. Catherine felt the change in the machine's behavior immediately. The smooth, controlled turn became something slightly more dramatic. The tractor began to lean into the turn, not dangerously, but noticeably, and she could see Tom's expression shift from relaxed confidence to alert attention. "Straighten out a bit," Tom said calmly but firmly. "You're pushing the limits of the turn radius." William, to his credit, responded immediately to the instruction. He began to ease the steering back towards center, intending to complete the turn in a wider arc. But, in his eagerness to correct, he overcorrected slightly in the opposite direction. The result was not dangerous, but it was certainly dramatic. The massive tractor, following the laws of physics and momentum, began what could only be described as a very slow, very controlled pirouette. The 8-ton machine, responding to the conflicting steering inputs and its own considerable inertia, began to spin slowly around its own center. Catherine felt her stomach drop as she realized what was happening. They weren't in any immediate danger, but they were definitely no longer traveling in a straight line. The world outside the cab windows began to rotate slowly as the tractor executed what amounted to a very large, very expensive donut in Tom's wheat field. "Oh dear," William said with remarkable calm, his hands still gripping the steering wheel as he tried to regain control of the situation. Tom, meanwhile, was caught between horror at what was happening to his field and amazement at the sight of royalty performing agricultural acrobatics. The tractor continued its slow spin, its massive tires carving circular tracks in the stubble-covered earth. Catherine, after her initial moment of alarm, began to laugh. The situation was so absurd, so completely unexpected, that her natural sense of humor took over. Here she was, spinning slowly in a wheat field in a runaway tractor, with her husband looking like a child who had just discovered he didn't know how to stop a bicycle. The laughter was infectious. Within moments, even William was chuckling despite his efforts to regain control of the situation. And Tom, seeing that no one was hurt and that his precious tractor was in no real danger, began to see the humor in the situation as well. The tractor's slow-motion pirouette continued for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 30 seconds. William, demonstrating the same calm under pressure that had served him well in military situations, methodically tried different combinations of steering and throttle inputs to regain directional control. Counter-steered gently, Tom coached, his initial panic giving way to professional problem-solving. Let the machine settle, then guide it where you want it to go. Finally, after completing nearly a full rotation, the massive tractor began to respond to William's inputs. The spinning slowed, then stopped, leaving them facing roughly the direction they had started, but with a very obvious circular pattern carved into the wheat stubble around them. Silence fell over the cab as the three of them absorbed what had just happened. Catherine looked around at the evidence of their unexpected agricultural adventure, then at her husband's slightly sheepish expression, then at Tom's face, which was cycling through several different emotions. Well, William said finally, that was educational. The understatement broke the tension completely. Tom burst into laughter, followed immediately by Catherine's delighted giggles and William's own rueful chuckles. Soon all three were laughing so hard that Catherine had to wipe tears from her eyes. In 40 years of farming, Tom gasped between laughs, I've never seen anyone create a crop circle with an 8-ton tractor while members of the royal family cheer them on. I wasn't cheering, Catherine protested, still giggling. I was expressing concern through interpretive laughter. William carefully engaged the transmission and began driving very slowly and very carefully toward the field gate. I think perhaps this would be a good time to end today's driving lesson, he said with admirable dignity. Probably wise, Tom agreed, wiping his eyes. Though I have to say, you handled that recovery very well. Kept your head, didn't panic, worked through the problems systematically. Military training, William replied, though they never covered runaway farm equipment in flight school. As they made their way back across the field at a sedate pace, Catherine found herself reflecting on how perfectly this incident captured the essence of their relationship. William's adventurous spirit and confidence in trying new things, combined with occasional overreach. Her own ability to find humor in unexpected situations, and the way they could face even embarrassing moments together with laughter and good humor. Tom, meanwhile, was already planning how he would tell this story. The day Prince William created crop circles in his wheat field was going to become legendary in local farming circles. He could already imagine the looks on his neighbors' faces when he explained the unusual patterns in his field. They reached the gate without further incident, and William brought the tractor to a complete stop with considerably more caution than he had shown during their field adventure. Tom took over the controls for the drive back to the farmyard, while William and Catherine enjoyed the view as passengers. You know, Catherine said thoughtfully as they bounced gently along the farm track, this is going to make an interesting addition to our official visit report. Indeed, William replied. I'm not sure protocol covers inadvertent agricultural performance art as a category of royal engagement. Back at the farmyard, Sarah was waiting with a pot of tea and an expression of barely contained curiosity. She had seen them drive out toward the field, heard the engine sounds change, and then noticed what appeared to be more activity than a simple straight-line drive should have produced. How did the lesson go? She asked innocently, though her eyes were twinkling with suspicion. Tom and William exchanged glances, and Catherine could see both men trying to decide how much of the truth to share. Finally, Tom's natural honesty won out. Well, we may have accidentally created some modern art in the lower field, he said with a grin. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Modern art. Your husband is an excellent teacher, William said diplomatically. And I learned a great deal about the importance of respecting a machine's capabilities and limitations, and about the artistic possibilities inherent in agricultural equipment, Catherine added with a mischievous smile. Over tea and Sarah's excellent homemade scones, the story of the afternoon's adventure was told and retold, with each version becoming slightly more elaborate and considerably more amusing. Tom demonstrated William's steering technique with his hands, while Catherine provided sound effects for the tractor's engine. As the afternoon drew to a close, William and Catherine prepared to leave. The official part of their visit had been a complete success, with genuine connections made and important conversations about the future of British agriculture. But it was the unplanned tractor adventure that had transformed the visit from a formal obligation into a genuine friendship. "Thank you for today," William said as he shook Tom's hand, "both for the education about modern farming and for being such a good sport about my creative interpretation of tractor operation." "Thank you for reminding me why I love this work," Tom replied sincerely, "and for giving me the best story I'll ever have to tell at the pub." Catherine hugged Sarah warmly, promising to send copies of the photos she had taken throughout the day, including the artistic ones from the field, she said with a wink. As their Range Rover pulled away from Meadowbrook Farm, William and Catherine waved goodbye to Tom and Sarah, who stood in their farmyard laughing and pointing toward the field where a very distinctive circular pattern would remind them of this extraordinary day for months to come. "So," Catherine said as they settled in for the drive back to London, "what did we learn today? That farming is more complex than it appears, that British agriculture faces significant challenges, and that 8-ton tractors have a mind of their own when it comes to artistic expression," William replied with a grin. "And that some of the best royal engagements are the ones where everything doesn't go according to plan," Catherine added. They drove home in comfortable silence, both already looking forward to sharing the story of their tractor adventure with their children, who would undoubtedly find the idea of their father accidentally creating crop circles absolutely hilarious. Behind them, in the peaceful Gloucestershire countryside, Meadowbrook Farm settled into evening quiet, with one field bearing a very distinctive circular pattern that would puzzle passing drivers for weeks to come, none of whom would ever guess that it was the result of a future king's first and memorably eventful tractor driving lesson.